Hello and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm your host, Kathy O'Sullivan, editor for CIO New Zealand. My guest today is Edward Liebenberger, Chief Technology Officer at Fingerprint for Success. Hello, Edward. How are things in Christchurch today?
Yeah, good, Kathy. Nice to see you again. We've got a nice, lovely sunny day. I want to say almost as per usual. I encourage everybody to check out Christchurch. It's a lovely tech scene. Come down, live here, the life.
Great plug for Christchurch there.
Absolutely. The lowest house prices in the country. What else is there to say?
To kick things off, can you tell us a little bit more about your role and what your team at F4S does?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think, for us, team chemistry is the real thing. It's why some keep underperforming despite having plenty of talents, while others seem to just have it. And you know how it's sometimes super hard to figure out how this whole human dynamic at work works, all that soft, intangible stuff, how to read people, how to better communicate and so forth, right? So our tech helps companies, organizations, teams to do just that. And so my role here is pretty straightforward. I'm the Chief Technology Officer. I'm heading up technology, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's product engineering, infrastructure, data, security, that sort of stuff. We are a SaaS company, so it is really very much focused towards our customers. Technology internally is obviously a thing that we do, but has much less of a priority. I hope this makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, transformation is thrown around as a word as if it's, something that's easy to do, as if it's absolutely a given within organizations. But we know that in reality, it's not an easy thing to do. Can you talk us through how that approach has taken shape in your own career?
Yeah, look, I think for me, I always looked at it as technology being the easy part. It's a little bit easy to say for people that work in technology, but personally, I don't think I've ever really seen a problem or a project that struggled with the technology itself, right? It's always the people that are involved, both on the delivery side and then obviously the people using it. And digital transformation, in my view, is most of that technology is here to augment people's work at the moment, right? In some case, some roles might replace, but they usually shape more into different roles. Right now, we're still at the point where we all have to work at some point, or most of us anyway. And so technology is supposed to make our life easier, to take away the mundane tasks and really let us shine in what people are good at: creativity, social skills, soft skills, communication, these sorts of things that technology isn't quite ready to take over yet. And so when you look at this way, if you don't have the buy-in, if you do a digital transformation, if you put in certain systems, and the people that are supposed to get help from these systems don't buy into it, you start off in a losing position already, right? I think that dynamic of getting people excited, making it their thing, having them drive it rather than being sort of there with the carrot and the stick and trying to get them to use certain things and change their habit. That's where I think mostly the challenge lies.
So walking back then from the end point of transformation, what do you think are some key steps CIOs must take along the way? Is there ever a starting point to a transformation journey?
I mean, I'm sure there was a starting point at some point, right? But I think, we're in the 2020s. You've been on that path. I think at this point, most people say, well, actually, it's not a project. There is no end date. Technology is just becoming more and more part of what we do. So, 20 years ago, we replaced paper forms with computer forms. Now it's different things, right? We're moving stuff into the cloud. We need to deal with a whole lot of data security. There's always a different thing. And there'll be another big thing coming up. And so you constantly have to adapt or be left behind in a way, right? What are the key steps that a CIO should take? I think CIOs these days are just as much business people as they are technology people. I think they need to have the same level of conversation than you can see in the ranks of a CFO or a COO type person. I think they need to have the same level of relationships within the company, and they have to have the same level of personal relationships and skills, right? Like I said before, I don't think technology is ever really the massive problem. It's people.
So then, along the way, are there any kind of common roadblocks that you think can be avoided along the way during a transformation journey?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always about early buy-in from everybody involved, right? If there's somebody that gets value out of it or is supposed to get value out of it, right? The typical, technology project in the corporate space has some level of business case attached to it that says, if we do X, we're gonna get Y benefit. And often we don't give enough thought, I think, to, well, that benefit is unlocked by people actually using it. So you want to have those people that unlock this benefit in on the journey at the beginning. And my ideal scenario as a technology leader is for them to have the feeling and not just the feeling, but actually driving this project, asking for more and more, right? Because then you get these immediate benefits, right? You have those quick wins that gain momentum, and then it's no different to any other behavioral change, right? You need to create some level of urgency to understand the problem. You need to get a momentum going. You get to get people excited. Once you get that rolling, you're gonna have to manage budgets and so forth, right? But it's that's an easy part, right? Everybody's asking for more. You're in a great position. If nobody's interested in what you're doing, you've got to go back to the drawing board.
So then, as Chief Technology Officer at Fingerprint for Success, in what ways are you collaborating and influencing the organization and its leadership team?
Yeah, look, I'm going to preface this with we're a SaaS company, right? So we fall into these categories of, some of the more well-known ones. You have not the original one maybe, but one of the original ones was TradeMe, and then you've got the Xeros, and now you've got the Plexures and the Vents and whatever of the world, right? So these are high growth companies where technology is almost the product, or it is the product, right? So in that context, we're a tight leadership team. Technology isn't just a cost factor, it is the value generating machine, which means there is a small group of executives that sit together on a regular basis, but we're not actually having meetings, right? It's quite an organic conversation. It's a constant conversation as well. We're also in a remote first environment, which as a high growth early stage company, we have the luxury of not dealing with a whole lot of sort of legacy systems and all. We could design the company the way we want, and so we got both an asynchronous information exchange via Slack, Teams, whichever platform you want to use. And then we have what we call a virtual office where there's constant audio communication. It's like in a gaming room for professionals, right? You walk across, you see in another group, two people hanging out. You walk across just like in an office, you have that conversation and say, I'm thinking about it this way. Right? And you have late night thoughts and you just put them on Slack. And you don't expect a response straight away, but it's where thoughts are nurtured and then come together. And then eventually we're like, all right, now we need to actually put a meeting in. We're going to suss this out. We'll workshop it. We'll put out a strategy and so forth. Right? It's probably a bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but I think, it's that constant communication. We're always on the same page. We know where the business is. We know where the product roadmap is. We know the supporting activities around growth that need to be done. It's a really exciting environment for somebody like me, right? I like speed. I like that. There's a constant vibe going on.
So that must be tricky, managing a team remotely and dealing with your leadership team remotely all the time. What advice would you have for other CIOs who, we have a lot of hybrid going on at the moment, people still working from home. What have you found really effective when leading a team remotely?
I think there are two types of remote companies that I've seen, right? I've seen it in the companies that they are forced into it by, we have a lockdown, right? Or there's a new wave coming through, that sort of stuff. And what happens there is typically a whole lot of meetings, Zoom meetings that forces people into this face-to-face communications that's almost an information overload, right? It's very different to that casual water cooler, coffee kind of conversation. Or, especially in sort of the development space, it's this, you touch base in the morning, and then you don't see or hear anything. You do a little bit on, the instant messaging kind of systems, Slack, Teams, and the likes, and that's it. And then you touch base the next morning. We are really trying to, we're a remote team. We are sort of hiring by time zone, if you will, to have those certain overlaps. And then we have a means to communicate with each other all the time, right? So I'm working at home. I got the speakers on. If somebody has a problem, it's just coming through like a walkie-talkie. If I need concentrated time, I go into the library. It's very much like in an office, right? Where if it's too loud around me in an open plan office, I'm going to grab my stuff and I'm going to go somewhere else. In my case, most likely the kitchen area because it's close to the coffee. But it's kind of the same principle here. And because of that, we got a bond like we used to have when we were in an office. We know each other. We're not just transactional communication. We still talk about our families, what happened last night, sports, whatever it is. And, it's that human element that you still need to have. I've never met my Australian team because up until recently, I couldn't travel really, right? And so we are all excited because in June, we're all getting together in Sydney, and we've got people from Ireland, from the Philippines, from Singapore, from New Zealand, all come together, and a couple of different parts in Australia. And I'm going to meet my CEO in person for the first time. And we've been working together for 2 years, 2.5.
Wow, that's incredible. A long time to not meet your boss. And so again, looking at things through that remote lens, how are you creating an internal culture that allows people to thrive and really, hit their professional and personal goals?
I think there are a couple of things that come together. One is quite unique to my situation. I'm in this really fortunate position where our founder and CEO is an executive coach by trade, right? And so almost by definition, she deeply cares about people and help them to achieve their goals and ambitions. And so this puts me in a position where it really starts at the top and it's genuine. It's not just, we need to have a good culture. It's intrinsic. But outside of that, I think, a lot of it for me comes down to, well, how do you grow as a person? How do you stay engaged? And I think it's about being stretched and not in the work for 50, 60, 70 hours a week kind of stretched. It's about, having opportunities to shine, having opportunities to do something outside of your comfort zone, but not too far outside of your comfort zone. If you go outside your comfort zone, to have a support network. And so when we do our goal setting for the years and so forth, right, we run our internal cadence on a 3-month basis, but our the traditional, we're setting our goals, I get together, do one-on-ones, I sit down with my guys. It goes slightly differently to what I hear from other companies. It's a conversation where it's not so these are your goals, and this is what you're going to be measured on, and this is how you get your bonus or increase and so forth. It's almost differently, where I'm going to sit down and we're talking about where do you want to be at the end of the year? What needs to happen over the next year for you to look back and say, this was an awesome year, right? I'm happy where I am. I know where I'm going, all that sort of stuff, right? And so it almost becomes a to-do list for me. I need to figure out, you want to move into a tech lead position. What needs to happen in between, right? That means you need to take some lead activities in some of the areas. You want to increase your team size. You want to move over into the AI space. How are we doing this, right? Yes, these people obviously need to put the work in themselves, but I need to give them the opportunity, right? And so it creates a plan for me, and they can hold me accountable on that. If we're in June and nothing has happened yet, I got my work cut out for me for the second half.
It's great having that, having that coaching environment underpinning it all.
Yeah.
So what do you think around the diversity issue in IT in New Zealand? What practical things do you think can be done to attract a wider pool of talent to IT roles?
Yeah. It's a difficult one. And I think, as an industry, we're looking at this as, how can we address it? And again, I kind of feel I'm almost in a special position. What we do is about helping others achieve their goals, right? It comes from the coaching side of things. We have a lot of AI involved, right? And one of the key things with AI and data is that level of bias, right? I mean, all these horror stories about you got a bunch of white dudes looking at the data and massaging it, and they feel really great about the experience that they provide, right? And have zero empathy for different cultures, different upbringings, all that sort of stuff, right? So we are a high growth company. We are going to be in that, we're doubling our team every 6 to 8 months. People that work for me now move into these leadership roles. Retrofitting diversity is incredibly hard to do. So while the team is small, I'm really trying to get in diversity across gender, ethnicity, cultural upbringings, all that sort of stuff. We need it. We need it now, both for our product and for our internal kind of balance in a way, right? I'm somebody who's really happy to take risks, right? If you surround me with people like me, we're going to be super fast and we're going to fall off the cliff at some point, right? So you need to be able to balance this in various ways. What I do is depends on which axis I go off. I target female specifically when I hire at the moment because I'm a little bit short. That means I reach out to people that I know in this industry. I reach out to industry reports like Tech Women and SET and so forth, right? I'm looking for personal recommendations. I want to find people that fit in. They need to have the right skill set, but at some point, I'm like, oof, I don't want to get over the top either, right? And the same is true with different ethnicities and. I think as a country, we are also suffering a little bit from this whole, we got Auckland, we got Wellington. They are kind of what people think they need to move to, or this is where work in the tech space is, to some extent Christchurch. And we got a certain demographic here in a way, right? What we don't really have, I mean, there are other center, Hamilton is growing up more and more. And there are some really good stuff happening in what we call the, more the rural areas or the less metropolitan areas. But remote work opens this up. The environment that people are in, finding the people that say, no, actually, I am interested. I never thought I could do this because I'm sitting in Gisborne, Hastings, or in, somewhere in the Marlborough Sounds. You got good internet connection and you're interested. IT is a field where education helps, but there's so much you can educate yourself on, right? Some of the best people I ever worked with have never seen the inside of the university. So, that access to the system is less a requirement these days. And that's where I'm looking for, right? And once I hit one of those communities, most of the time I find 2 or 3 people that are in that ecosystem, right? That look for a way out, and then they're like, yeah, here we are. This is our cultural upbringing. This is our background. We'd love to get involved, right? So I think that's the opportunity that we have now through hybrid and the likes, right? To tap more into the regions outside of Auckland and Wellington, and with some people there getting the opportunity, you will start seeing that snowball effect, hopefully, where other people say, oh, I didn't think I could do this unless I moved to Auckland. Maybe I can.
And great that remote work opens up that possibility. So just switching gears a bit, and when you look back at your own career, are there any mistakes that stand out that really shaped you as a leader?
I'm going to say there are plenty of mistakes, probably. Being headstrong, probably being one of them. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is I am who I am, right? I am somebody who likes to push ahead, who likes to take at least calculated risks, and that I do need that counterbalance, right? I surround myself with people who understand who I am, but also understand to talk me off the cliff occasionally, right? And I think that's part of a cultural habit, right? There is people have a field day calling me out on certain things. And I think that's important, right? If they at any point feel there are any level of repercussions, then you just don't get that, right? But having the right environment, it's incredibly important because it allows me to be me, right? I can do these things, and I trust that my team and my colleagues keep me in check if needed, but also support me enough and not trying to put me in a mold. And I think that's also the advice that I always have when I talk to my children about things. It doesn't mean that what you do is right. You are a certain thing, and some things are good to change. I'm a bit old. I find it incredibly hard to change my colors, right? But at least be aware of it and surround yourself with people that can hold you accountable.
Would that be your advice then to other aspiring IT leaders? What other advice would you have for them?
Yeah, every time I get asked about something, what's the best advice that you ever had, across everything, personal life, career, and so forth. I do remember I must have been around 12 years old or so. My dad said to me, "Look, if you don't know which way to go, choose the hardest path. It almost always is the right one." In terms of integrity, in terms of the outcome for you as well, right? If it's easy, it's often not worthwhile doing it in the first place, right? So, I kept this in mind, and I gotta say, I've often enough taken the easy way out as well. But when I look back, the things that I worked hard for were the most worthwhile to achieve, and so sticking with it, I think, is one of those things that I try to instill on, my team, my children, and so forth. Know that you can and should follow through, but also know your own bias and make sure you don't have just yes sayers around you.
And finally then, Edward, can I ask you what's important to you in the months ahead?
Yeah, sure. Same as always, speed, right? For us, everything is about how can we keep people productive, right? What can I put in place to bring on new people, to get them productive straight away for their own sake, just as much as ours, right? That sense of achievement. How can we move fast without breaking too much, right? You got this old saying, if you don't, that whole Facebook mantra from 20 years ago, if you don't break anything, you're not moving fast enough. That is true to some extent. On the other hand, it is a real mess, right? If you break severe things. How to move fast and keep pushing the boundaries is the thing that I obsess about on a daily basis.
Edward Leibenberger, Chief Technology Officer at Fingerprint for Success. Thank you so much for your time today.
It was good to talk to you, Kathy.